January 24, 2014. That's 4 years ago. It feels surreal that time flies, but it does, and we are now in 2018. So what does January 24th mean for me? A few things. 2 years ago, I uploaded a video on the MiG-15. It was called The Greatest Match I've Ever Had, and I've recently made that video public again. It was unlisted during one of the pretty much enormous deletions of content on my channel. It happened a few months ago. I was it's a good story. I wasn't sober. I was going through some old content. I was reading some comments, and I saw a lot of maybe not really hatred, but people pointing out some stuff, and I felt like I was in a bad place at the time, so I removed a lot of the content from the channel, and it resulted in, obviously, a lot of it being lost, including this, which is Doomtime. And Doomtime is a Q&A that we used to do a lot of, where I would take your comments and answer them, and, you know, maybe I used to go through, like, movies I've watched or TV shows or music I've listened to, kind of a face-to-face thing. But then when, obviously, streaming took off, I figured, you know, what's the point of this if we got streaming? Because streaming is kind of like a continuous Q&A. January 24th means a lot to me because it's like a culmination of a lot of things that happened over the past 4 to 5 years. 4 years ago, on January 24th, I uploaded my very first video. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not unlisted. The only video that still exists that I left on the channel is the first commentary. That was nothing, January 27th. But for a few days, I was uploading just gameplays, and I believe the first video was on the Tempest Mark V. It was a match on Berlin. It was a clip of about 7 minutes. Just the combat was shown. There was no commentary. It was just 5 kills, and I took that, just uploaded it. I remember the thumbnails were made in paint. It was cringy almost, but I had to do it, you know. And every journey, they say every journey starts with the first step, and so you upload a video, and you upload another, you know, and little do you know that at some point you're going to be standing in front of 40,000 people that anticipate and wait for you to upload content. And I've been laying dormant for a week, but to be completely honest, I've been laying dormant for months. I have not felt content, I've not felt the connection with the community, and I've not felt the game that we all learned to love. So it's time for the truth. And the truth is that I quit. I've not taken a break. I've not taken time off. I've not taken a vacation. I've quit. I've stopped. And this is because I'm standing in front of a crossroad, a section in my life that has to be made now. You know, it's now or never. It's that point where, you know, when an aircraft is taken off, they reach a point of no return, where if they tried stopping, they'd run out of runway. It's not about, you know, what game we're going to play or what resolution there is or what frame rate the stream is going to be at, or it's none of that. It's about careers. It's about future. It's about me. And this is probably the most ego thing that I'm ever going to say, but I need to choose a career path. A year ago, surprisingly enough, on the 24th of January, I was sitting in college, writing my phonetics exam in English literature, or whatever it was called. And as I was sitting there trying to figure out how the fuck to put an English vowel into a definition of how it's pronounced within your mouth, I realized that really is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I walked out, and I took a year off. And that year off of college had pretty much opened my eyes to a lot of things, but it's also made me vulnerable to my own thoughts and vulnerable to, well, being lazy, doing really nothing but sitting behind a computer, playing video games, and then occasionally making a YouTube video complaining about that video game. When it boils down to decisions made in life, I think that there's 3 things to listen to: the gut, the heart, and the brain. And it's time that I start going down that line and start thinking what it is that I want to do. I have a lot of hobbies, I have a lot of passions, I'm good at some things, I'm bad at some things, I'm just your average human being. And over the past 5 years that I've known War Thunder as a video game, I've had this belief that for once I could get somewhere with it. I saw potential in it. I saw potential in myself, and I knew that I had a lot of time to learn, to grasp all that this game has to offer, because the complexion of it is sublime. But it's not going in a direction that I like. It's like a freight train heading down the tracks, entering a really, really steep left-hand turn, and it's going to derail. And it's going to derail very, very, very badly. And I don't want to be on that train when it happens. When it comes to emotions, and I do apologize because I'm quite emotional at the moment, obviously going through a few personal things that I don't want to discuss. I don't like putting personal issues or personal occurrences into content because I don't think it belongs there. It doesn't belong in a workspace environment. And for a long time, I looked at YouTube as a workplace, as a Premiere Pro, the program I'm sitting in front right now, making this commentary, is like canvas for a painter. It's like an unwritten sheet of paper that you can write music on. It's like a piano. It's pure. But for some reason, I've got no footage to put onto it. I've got no image to display that could explain how I feel about it. 6 months ago, I was sitting in a position where I was feeling kind of comfortable. I had started streaming daily. I was reasonably motivated to make YouTube content, and I was enjoying the game. The close air support spam that you all learned to, well, some learned to hate it, some learned to love it. I enjoyed the game at that point because I could play it brain dead without thinking and also get the rewards for it. Being able to carry every game, being able to go through that, and then patches started happening. First it got nerfed, and then we received new tanks, and in a matter of 2 months, the whole game for me had changed, and I haven't enjoyed it since. And there's something oddly painful about trying to do something with the mentality of work that you don't enjoy. So I'm walking out. We've seen at least 3 major patches hit over the past 6 months, and none of them have brought anything that I would be remotely interested in. I arguably know what's coming in the future, what kind of patches Gaijin is looking to release, and I'm not interested in any of them. Maybe I'm being nostalgic about what the old game used to look like. Maybe it's seeing the decrease of viewership, but here's a few numbers to chew on. The War Thunder player base is growing by the day, but its community is shrinking. And that is a direct result of an influx of the player base on the lower spectrum, which means a lot of players come, spend a lot of money in the game, don't play for a long time, and then leave. It is great for money, great for Gaijin, bad for War Thunder. And, there's so many more factors that come into play here, but to make it quite simple, at the end of the day, we're talking about careers, we're talking about income, and we're talking about personal mental health. When you're doing something you don't enjoy, and you're not making the income that is, reliable, that's not very good for you. And as such, as a person as I am, I do find money to be a motivator. I think it's a great motivating factor. But I didn't start doing this for money. Nobody starts producing hobby-ish content, uploading to YouTube. You may be a skit, or an edit, or a kill montage. You don't do that because you want to make money. You do it because you can. And then you see that perhaps there's a way that by doing that, you can make people's lives better. Somebody comes home from school and they can watch your content, and you start to think about perhaps doing that as a career. And as much as you know that it's not going to be a career that you could do for, a long amount of time, it's something that definitely could fit in for now. But what happens later, what happens after, is something that keeps me awake at night. It's, for a long time, I had this image in my head of a classic suburban family of 3. You go to primary school, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a job, you get a wife, you get a kid, and the circle goes on. And I don't know what it was, but something clicked, and I thought to myself, is there a way to break the cycle? Is there a way to go into a different direction? You know how they say that you're kind of like your father or like your mother. You know, you take their traits, you take their career path. And at the end, I think it all comes down to those genetics, to those inner motives that drive you forward. I thought I could escape that little cycle. I thought it would be great, to be different, because that's how I was brought up. Different is great. Different is good. Be different. It's not a problem. If you're getting bullied, that's great. It means you're different. It means you're doing something well. If you're not making enemies, you're not really doing well. There's all these quotes that float around the internet, and I'm a fan of quotes. I'll pick up one from time to time. I love those Latin ones, like repetition is the mother of learning, and enjoy your day. What is it? Carpe diem. Things like that. They're great little motivational quote. To get you from A to B or whatever, to boost your morale by +5. But in the long run, the longevity, it just doesn't cut it. I like gaming. I like that thrill of sitting behind a computer game and playing and just having a jolly good time, really. Streaming has especially become something I've become almost partially obsessed with. Being able to talk to people. And the fact that players can join at any given time, they can interact with you at any given time. There's so many possibilities, so many possible outcomes. There's the memes being thrown around and the emote spam and the occasional insult, and some drama is always present. But what's become a bit dumbing down is that there's constantly some type of nagging. There's constantly some type of negative atmosphere surrounded by it. And when you look at it as a job, and I tried doing that, for a year. Obviously, if I'm not doing college, I'm doing a year of working, and I looked at this as a work. I tried to imagine and envision how it would look if I was to do content as a living, as a career path, because that's the only way to find out. You don't know if you're cut out for something unless you try. That's why we always say, give it a go, give it a try. You don't know if you're going to enjoy it or not. You don't know if that different game mode or that different school or that different food that you've never eaten, you don't know how it tastes, how it feels until you give it a try. And that's why I needed to step up almost. I needed to take that seat and see if I could sit in the cockpit of this plane that's charging across the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm in control of this career path, and it's not for me. I don't believe this is for me. I don't think I'm cut out for it. Maybe it's the winter's depression kicking in. Maybe it's the low motivation. Maybe it's the lack of social communication with people that I used to have social communication with. But when it boils down to, it's an insecure flight path, and I don't wish to take it any longer. I've got different paths to take. I can look for jobs. I can look for a career in a university. But I need to make my choice. I need to make my stand and go for what I believe in. And that, of course, does bring us to the most, kind of daunting question is what happens here? What happens with this? Are you just going to throw it away? Are you just going to forget about it? No. But I would like to go back to this being a hobby. I would like to go back to this being a leisure of free time, because that's how I started. I didn't take 12 hours a day to grind something and then do a 4.5 hour stream and talk to people. It was more about doing it because you could do it. Coming home from school or coming home from hanging out with friends or visiting family, and even though you're a little bit exhausted at days, or you're feeling a bit down, you do it. And because there was a schedule and because there was this motivation to do something more, I enjoyed it. I found it more profound than it was me. And something happened during January last year that turned everything upside down for me. I'd started making irrational decisions. I'd started to daydream. A lot of this mental processing that I had was starting to kind of float into oblivion. I was not in control anymore. I feel like there was always something that would distract me. There was always this one thing that had to be done, that was reminding me that there was something else I had to do, whether it was some type of homework or studying for an exam or calling your girlfriend at the time or anything. There was some type of a distraction. And then when I had made that irrational decision, everything almost chaotically fell into place. And I didn't really know where to turn. I felt free, for the first time in my life. I felt like there's nothing holding me back now. There's nothing that I can do that I wouldn't be capable of doing. I've got free time. I've got money saved up. I can do whatever I want. And that's when content, as something that you're producing, what's you, that expression part of you, starts to fail. That is why views are falling. That is why overall motivation to create anything is falling, because there's no reason to make it. Because if you're not working hard, you're not really working. If you're not breaking a sweat, you're not creating. You're not forcing something new, something great. And so becoming a sort of like a couch sloth, becoming a procrastinator, becoming a lazy slob that just, moves from day to day and counts when something great is going to happen, never does. You have to catch it. You have to get out there and you got to go and grab. And that's why I can't do this anymore. I need something greater, something that will fulfill me on a greater basis than just repetitive actions that produce a slight amount of income, that produce a slight amount of emotional compatibility that just doesn't go anywhere. That is why I need to do something else. And so, starting now, I want to focus more on things that I love. And as such, when it comes to streaming, I'm going back to my old schedule, the Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I might change the times around, but those are the days that I want to stream on. And the game that I've chosen to do is RuneScape. Old school RuneScape. A game that I probably have more hours in than War Thunder. A game that I used to think in. It was my language. And it's a game that evolved my English to where it is now. Funny as it might sound, walking around that, that world, that second home almost as a kid, exploring and learning and typing and responding and fighting, and it gave me motivation to work on my English. It was the base plate of everything that I have, and I owe it to that game, and I wanted to go back to the roots, back to what it stands for. And so old school RuneScape is what we are going to be playing on stream. I understand that this game is a complete opposite of what you're used to. It is a complete surprise for most of you, and a lot of you are not going to enjoy it, but that's what I'm going to do, because I have to follow, for once, my heart. And my heart is in that game. Then comes my gut. And they say love goes through the stomach. And I've had a hobby for a long time. A field in which I feel very comfortable, almost at home. Whether it was grandma or mother, cooking, food, culinary world. The feeling of tasting something and trying to guess what ingredients it has or how it was put together, it lights me up. And I want to make something with that. I want to put together more than just a shitty Snapchat story, where I cook something. I want to do something bigger, something that you can use too. And so I was thinking maybe I could upload a video of cooking, put some effort, edit it together, make it into a thing, make it into an entity that anybody can pick up, pick up some ingredients they have at home, put them together and create something. Cook something nice for your family, surprise them. Cook something for your girlfriend. Make something that comes from you, and understand that cooking is something that everyone can do, and that you can do better than just, throwing something in the microwave or using some frozen shit. And then last but not least is the brain. The final filter in the story, the final entity that I've neglected for so long. My brain, as a thinking process, as a mental instrument, has not been fully utilized for over a year now, and I feel dreaded, but I'm keen to get it back started. It's like an old rusted engine. It needs a bit of new paint. Needs a few screws. Needs a little bit of WD, but it'll run. And I'm motivated to make it run fast. And so I want to apologize to everyone who not just stayed here or is here for what used to be here, for War Thunder. I want to apologize for Gaijin, because I'm leaving them as a content creator, because I felt close to the game. I did. I want to apologize to any content creator I may have offended or caused harm in some way, or annoyed, or all the drama. But I foremost want to thank everybody for an unforgettable journey, and in general just an emotional roller coaster. It's been great. I loved it, but I've got to move on. Thank you.